An entire nation was terrified by one man.
At that time, the people of Israel were ruled by judges, but they wanted to be like the nations around them and demanded a king. God allowed them to have one, and a man named Saul was chosen to rule over Israel. Saul was tall, impressive, and looked every bit like a king. At first, he led the nation well, but over time, pride and disobedience began to grow in his heart. He ignored God's commands and chose his own way instead. Because of this, God told the prophet Samuel that Saul would no longer remain king forever. The Lord sent Samuel to Bethlehem, to the house of a man named Jesse. When Samuel arrived, Jesse proudly presented his sons. One by one, they stood before the prophet. The oldest looked strong and kingly. Surely this was God's choice. But the Lord said something Samuel would never forget. Man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. Each son passed before Samuel, yet God rejected them all. Finally, Samuel asked, "Are these all your sons?" Jesse replied that his youngest son was still in the fields watching the sheep. That young shepherd was David. When David arrived, God told Samuel, "Rise and anoint him. This is the one." In front of his family, Samuel poured oil upon David's head. From that day forward, God's Spirit rested powerfully upon him. Yet David did not become king immediately. Instead, he returned to the fields. While others might have become impatient, David faithfully cared for his father's sheep. Day after day, he watched over the flock. He learned courage, responsibility, and trust in God. When lions and bears attacked the sheep, David fought them and rescued the animals from danger. Alone beneath the stars, he worshiped God and composed songs that would later become some of the most famous psalms in history. These quiet years were preparing him for something much greater. Meanwhile, King Saul's relationship with God continued to deteriorate. Saul became troubled and restless. His servants discovered that David was a gifted musician and invited him to play the harp in the king's court. Whenever David played, Saul found relief from his distress. The young shepherd had now entered the royal palace, though no one yet knew what God had planned for him. Soon a new threat emerged. The Philistines gathered their armies and prepared for war against Israel. Among them stood a giant warrior named Goliath. He towered above ordinary men. Covered in heavy armor and carrying massive weapons, he was a terrifying sight. Every morning and evening, Goliath stepped forward and challenged Israel. "Choose a man to fight me." If Israel's champion won, the Philistines would serve Israel. But if Goliath won, Israel would become their servants. For 40 days, no one accepted the challenge. Even King Saul was afraid. One day, Jesse sent David to deliver food to his older brothers who were serving in Israel's army. When David arrived at the battlefield, he heard Goliath's challenge. He watched as the giant mocked Israel and insulted the living God. David was shocked. Why was no one willing to stand against him? The soldiers explained that everyone feared the giant, but David saw the situation differently. He did not focus on Goliath's size. He focused on God's power. David told Saul that he would fight the giant himself. At first, Saul refused. David was only a youth, while Goliath had been a warrior for many years. But David explained how God had protected him while he cared for his father's sheep.
"The Lord who rescued me from the lion and the bear will rescue me from this Philistine."
Saul finally agreed. He placed his own armor on David, but it was far too heavy. David removed it. Instead, he took only his shepherd's staff, his sling, and 5 smooth stones from a nearby stream. As David approached, Goliath laughed. The giant could not believe that Israel had sent a shepherd boy to face him. He mocked David and cursed him, but David stood his ground.
"You come against me with sword and spear, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty,"
David declared. Then David ran toward the giant. He placed a stone in his sling and launched it with all his strength. The stone flew through the air and struck Goliath directly in the forehead. The giant staggered. Then he crashed to the ground. The battlefield fell silent. The mighty warrior who had terrified an entire nation was defeated. David rushed forward and secured the victory. When the Philistines saw their champion had fallen, they fled. Israel's army surged forward and chased them from the battlefield. A miraculous victory had been won. The shepherd boy from Bethlehem had defeated the greatest warrior in the land. David trusted not in armor, weapons, or strength, but in God. And on that day, the entire nation witnessed what God could do through someone whose heart was fully devoted to Him. But this victory was only the beginning. The fame of David would soon spread throughout Israel, and his growing popularity would awaken a dangerous jealousy in the heart of King Saul. The road to the throne had begun.